I want to hear from this man about more than just that. His name is Gordon Chang. You can find him on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. He's the author of The Coming Collapse of China. First of all, Gordon, before we get into what we should do to China, what do you think they did here? Obviously, rumors are swirling everywhere. They knew about this a long time before. They purposely covered it up. It was all an accident. It's a bioweapon. What do you make of what China actually did?
Well, on the initial question of where it came from, we really don't know, Jesse. And the reason is that there are two theories, and there's science that supports both theories. And one of the theories is it came from a wet market in Wuhan from a bat. The other is that it was a release, probably an accidental one, from a P4 biosafety lab. That's the highest level of biosecurity. The question is whether this was engineered or not. There's a lot that we don't know. And the thing that's got to be most of concern is that Beijing has prevented the international community from studying the origins of this outbreak. There was a World Health Organization team in Wuhan for part of a day, and it was only part of the team that was allowed into the city. That obviously was not enough. So we got to ask the question, what is China hiding? The second part of your question, though, is that China took actions that deliberate actions which permitted this to become a pandemic instead of just a local epidemic in Wuhan in central China. They hid the human-to-human transmissions. And because of that, countries around the world, including the U.S., did not take precautions that they otherwise would have adopted.
I am as anti-China as any person walking the planet, but allow me to play devil's advocate and just tell me if this is even possible. What if it was from a bat or something, and they were just too embarrassed to tell everybody? Is that even humanly possible? If they won't let people in because it's kind of embarrassing, we have a gross disease that started here.
Well, I suppose that's possible, but we got to remember whether they were embarrassed or not, the consequences of their actions and what they did.
Yeah.
Doctors in Wuhan knew from about the second week in December that this was a human-to-human transmission type of bug, because they had the spread of disease that could only be explained in that way. But China did not officially acknowledge that until January 21st. And what's critical here is that the World Health Organization on January 14th issued that infamous tweet that said, look, based on what the Chinese have told us, there's no human-to-human transmission. And that actually, I think, ended up letting this bug spread around the world a lot faster than it would have, largely because countries said, oh, no human-to-human transmission, we don't have to worry about it. And also because they were undercounting the number of infections and deaths. It made this look, as Dr. Bricks said on Tuesday, it made it look like SARS, not something much more serious, which it actually turned out to be.
I've heard several complaints from people saying the World Health Organization severely dropped the ball in this. They're running cover for China. They've been running cover for China. Are they running cover for China? And if so, why? What do they get out of that?
Well, unfortunately, they have, because they adopted China's position on human-to-human transmissions, which was absolutely critical. And they adopted China's lines about there shouldn't be any restrictions imposed on travelers from China. And travelers from China are obviously the ones who spread this disease. The WHO delayed for about a week or so the declaration of a public emergency of international concern. That happened in January. They delayed the declaration of a pandemic. That was last month. And Dr. Tedros, who is the Director General of the WHO, its chief, actually talked about the superiority of China's socialist system in dealing with the epidemic. That was an attack on democracy and on our democracies. The WHO participated in that. So yeah, they're carrying China's water. They're acting like an arm of the Chinese Communist Party.
Why? Are these a bunch of commie college professors? Are they actual people from China? Why would they carry China's water?
I don't know the answer to that question. Dr. Tedros is a socialist, but China doesn't supply that much in the way of contributions to the WHO. We're the biggest funder of it. But China has devoted a lot of effort to controlling multilateral organizations like the WHO. And Tedros's predecessor is Margaret Chan, who's the Chinese national. So they have actually focused on the WHO. But it really is a mystery why other officials in the WHO, including the number two, Bruce Aylward, why they actually go along with this. I just don't know.
Gordon, I am extremely worried, and I'm hoping you can calm these fears that we are destroying our own economy. Look, I'm not worried about that. I know we are. That's just a fact. Whether it's right or wrong, we can debate. We are destroying our own economy. We do have a pandemic. I believe we'll get our arms around it. I'm worried that a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, we try to get back to business and we have destroyed our economy so much that the rest of the world is going to start looking for a new superpower to shop from. And I'm worried that's going to be China. Should I have that worry?
Well, yeah, we should be concerned because Beijing is trying to use the pandemic to push the U.S. Off to the side and to promote totalitarianism. But to a certain extent, China can't do what it wants to do. And the reason is they are trying to get prematurely back to work. Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, has been trying to do this since the first week of February. We are seeing evidence of a second wave of infections that will further cripple China's economy. And I think that probably will tar China's image to such extent that Xi Jinping will not be able to accomplish his aims. I might be optimistic on that, but the thing about this bug is that it's highly transmissible, and if you don't kill it off, it will come back, and it'll come back in a way that will further hobble the United States. So while I understand your concerns, I do think President Trump is doing the right thing in terms of trying to combat this.
What do we do about it? Fast forward to whenever that time frame is. We're past it. We've got it done. We're back to working again. What do we actually do about China? Do we do what the senator said at the beginning of this? Do we do more? Do we do nothing? There has to be something done, surely. What do we do? What can we do?
Well, there's a number of things. First of all, we need to reduce our dependence on China for the production of pharmaceuticals and medical protective gear. If we're going to seek reparations, which is what Senator Blackburn was talking about, we can't do this alone, because if we do this alone, Beijing and Russia and Iran and all of China's allies are going to say that they're going to tar us for our stewardship of the global financial system. So we need to do this in connection with the issuers of other major currencies. In other words, with the pound, the euro, Swiss franc, and the yen. We do that, and we can get some compensation for this. But that compensation won't nearly be enough. The one thing that we have to do, Jesse, is to drastically reduce our relations with China. Because China's regime is unreformable. We have seen it take actions in connection with the coronavirus that are malicious, that Chinese leaders knew would inevitably lead to the spread of this disease. This is actually worse than China's reaction to the SARS epidemic of 2002, 2003. So if we're going to protect ourselves, we've got to understand that we're in an existential struggle. As China said, it's in a people's war with us, quote unquote. That's from last May. And we've got to understand that there's only going to be one survivor long term, and it's either going to be the People's Republic of China or the United States of America. So we need to defend ourselves, and we need to understand the fundamental nature of the challenge from Beijing.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.